Yeah, this was kind of weird. There's a lot of controversy in Las Vegas right now, trailing about what Roger Goodell and the NFL did. They limited the press conference to invitation only, and the
Really?
media was really up in arms.
Yeah.
I think they limited it maybe to 75 because it used to be anybody who had a press credential was allowed access and have this massively big room. Now, not everybody got to ask questions, but there's just a sentiment that the NFL is in grudge mode against the media, and they decided who to invite, quote, as our friend, and who's not going to be invited. Those have been critics. And that's really pissed off national media guys. And I've taken part in those press conferences, and I got to ask two questions over the three or four Super Bowls that I've covered. I mean, it's tough. There's so many people there. But at the end of the day, though, he did get broadsided with a bunch of tough questions. Question about what we've talked about all football season long. Yeah, you were happy to pay $5.99 to see a playoff game. That was okay. But if they took the Super Bowl to streaming, would you be happy to pay $299? Well, he said, we will never stream the Super Bowl in my lifetime. So his contract runs till 2036. So there won't be any streaming of the Super Bowl. At least that's what came out of his mouth. Playoff packages and in-season games, streaming. He says that's where the young viewers are. We're taking our product and making sure the young viewers are getting access.
Yeah, he's right.
And they maintain that as they continue to work with Amazon and YouTube and whatever else platform they're going to wind up, Peacock in addition, he said this thing is going to continue to grow. You have to have a starting point, and we have our starting point, what we did the first time around with the streaming packages, and we think the sky is the limit. The media war. He was caught in a lawsuit deposition in which he evidently made the comment, we have to declare war on some of these people in the media. And he was asked about that.
Really?
He got broadsided by this one. They didn't think that question was coming. He said, I was making reference to our request for accurate reporting as it relates to concussions, the gambling problems in the league, things of that nature. I think they're peeved that there are a lot of people looking at the NFL and his leadership, jaundiced eye, is that the correct term, saying what comes out of their mouth is not exactly the way they operate this franchise or operate this league. He said, you people have never reported, I'm talking about the gambling scenario, never reported that we've suspended 13 players in 2 years for gambling. You've never reported the clubs have suspended 25 of their own employees for gambling. Well, we didn't know. You didn't make it available. How are we supposed to report that?
Exactly.
Concussions, big issue. And again, they're still in grudge mode that the media continues to report. The concussion settlement has still left players outside the circle who are not being taken care of. Guys who have died of CTE were not diagnosed by those doctors. There's a huge war about who is doing the investigations of the players' injuries and the reports they're filing and why they're doing what they're doing. I just read a report that there's 5 NFL players that have died recently. All their brains went to Boston University, all had severe CTE, yet they were not qualified by the NFL concussion group doctors that they deserve to be paid. So it's still a monster issue. But he did say that the Guardian caps that they use in preseason camp have reduced preseason concussions by 50%.
Cool.
They look goofy. He says at this point, there's been no move to use the Guardian caps during the course of the regular season, which would add another layer of protection to the players. Granted, the helmets really look weird. He said all the rules were put in place about OTAs, limits in contact workouts, banning a 2-a-day workouts, how many times you can be in pads. He says this past year, we had 700 less man games lost to leg and knee and hamstring and Achilles injuries. 700 man games less lost because of what we've done in off-season preparation, et cetera. So they're making some positives there. Referees, he says, we're striving for consistency. He defended the referees. He said these guys are under enormous scrutiny. They have to make a decision instantly in an unbelievably fast game. But we've given them the tools, the instant replay, to try to correct if something is wrong. He stopped short of saying we're going to put a sky judge, an extra official in the booth that would give them power. Rooney Rule. So the Patriots did not violate the Rooney Rule. If you recall, they worked a deal with Jared Mayo, the defensive coordinator. He would be the heir apparent to Belichick. And Patriots did not interview anybody outside once they decided to part ways with Belichick. That seems to be a violation of the Rooney Rule, but Goodell said this is an African-American minority who got the head job. This was prearranged. So they filled their quota because they promoted from within. Somebody then asked him the question, what if a club has a white coordinator and they want to make this type of deal? If they promoted the white coordinator, that would be a violation of the Rooney Rule. Well, we didn't get an answer to that question from Goodell. So, but he said nobody's reported the fact that 51% of the hires of all clubs and the league office, 51% of the hires in the last 2 years have been minorities or women. He says, we're making a lot of progress here. It's not being reported. And then he was asked about Travis and Taylor and the NFL's power couple. And he said, hey, they're good for the game. She's a dynamo in terms of being an entertainer and a business person. And said, for the NFL to open up our game to her 3.2 million fans, that's good for us.
Oh, yeah.
And it's good for them because they're following what Travis is in, and Taylor are interested in now. So it's funny. He wrapped up his press conference talking about the NFL's power couple. So that's Goodell's comments. Go ahead, John. Pick some topics that you want to talk about.
Well, first of all, I think Taylor Swift has a hell of a lot more than 3.2 million fans. It might be billion. But I want to talk about the streaming part of it because, like, I have 2 children. They're in their mid-20s. Neither one of them has a cable TV package. You know, everything they do is streaming. They watch on their computer. They watch on their device. Sometimes they'll watch on their big screen TV in their living room. But, you know, they streaming is the way they get their content. So he's right. That's, if you want to transition to young people adopting the sport, you got to do it. The concussion angle is another story. I saw, was it yesterday? It was a headline that rugby players now are starting to have early onset dementia.
Yes.
You know, when they're in their 40s.
And some are wearing helmets, big. It's almost like the Guardian caps, but a lot don't.
Yeah. So the point is that it's great that science is uncovering a lot of these causes. I mean, some of it just seems rather obvious. You get hit in the head, but the work that they're doing, in fact, like you even said, the helmets. If you notice, there's all those very different style of helmets that people wear.
And this year, they're going to unveil 8 different new designed helmets based on the position you play that'll give you different protection. Offensive linemen will have a different helmet structure than, say, a running back or a cornerback or a punter. So it's technology. They've made great advances. Still doesn't take away from the fact that this was a cover up and this was allowed to happen for decades upon decades.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are all great topics. So, what's up with the international game?
They're going to put a game in Brazil.
Oh, nice.
The Philadelphia Eagles going to play a home game. They've never played on Friday night. The NFL is going to play a opening weekend game on a Friday night in September in Brazil. Eagles are going to be the home team. They haven't named the other team. You know, so they're going to Brazil. They've done Japan, done Tokyo, and all that. Obviously, they've expanded to England. Now they're playing games in Germany. Next up is going to be probably France and Spain. They have played one game in Ireland. So they're just making it global, and that's cool. And they're doing it during the regular season, which those are important football games rather than the third week of August where nobody cares because those guys are all going to get cut. So, I mean, the NFL is doing what baseball's done, what the NBA's done, what the National Hockey League has done. They're trying to really extend the reach globally.
Yeah. I mean, how is the NFL being adopted, internationally? I mean, are the fans in Europe, are they like, oh, just some American game. I just going to watch my English Premier League?
No, when you have 82,000 fans at Wembley Stadium to watch the NFL game, and they're all wearing NFL gear and carrying flags. Now, it's an event.
So it's not just the expats. I mean, these are like native Europeans that have adopted the sport.
Yeah, and that week that Liverpool or Manchester United's not playing, we're buying beers and buying gear and buying flags and buying scarves. And we'll be in the stands. We don't know what the hell's going on in the field, but we're going to be there. It's an event. It's a social event.
Right on. Okay.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see what the thing has become. You know, I broadcast a game as the voice of the Chargers. We played in the Tokyo Dome, and I broadcast a game in Berlin, Germany. Those were preseason games. It was just fascinating to see these fans who I don't think knew very much about the game show up and cheer and ask when am I supposed to cheer. And it was really, really kind of different. But the league has just grown by leaps and bounds, and their fingerprint is everywhere globally, and they're just going to continue to expand.
We were talking about this right before when you walked in, before we started. Tell me that story again about Media Row and the Super Bowl and your experience.
1988, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was January of 88, the Super Bowl was here. It was right after my first year as voice of the Chargers, and I was on Extra 690. And I said, I want to take my show down to the Media Hotel, which I think was the Hyatt Regency right on the water, Seaport Village. And that's where everybody was staying at that point in time. So we went to the league, and the league said, sure, that'd be okay. So we went and we set up. They told us, here's where you go. Come in the front door. There's a big walkway lobby. You stay in that lobby, and we'll get your phone lines put there. So there were three of us, three stations, Extra 690, WFAN in New York, WIP Philadelphia. We were the only first three radio stations. Now, Radio Row, 150, 200 stations.
Yes.
It's absolutely amazing. Plus all the TV networks. And because everybody's got their sets for the TV crews for each of the networks. And so it's fascinating just to be the first one. And occasionally you get people walk by the lobby, through the lobby, and you grab them and come sit here and talk to me for 7 minutes. And it was different. We were the first ones. And Major League Baseball did the exact same thing. I went to the winter baseball meetings were here in San Diego. This is when I was in Phoenix. And we came, and there were 3 stations the first year I came to the winter meetings here at Town and Country. And we did 3 nights from the winter baseball meetings in San Diego back to KTAR in Phoenix. And now Radio Row is kind of a fascinating thing at the winter baseball meetings. And it's cool because it's all part of the event.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love hearing these stories because you have so much to offer, so many things that you've seen in your career.
Yeah. That including Steve Young's 6 touchdown passes against the Chargers in our Super Bowl game in January of 1995. But what a great experience. Hey, listen, our podcast, our